Hey, everybody, I'm Desiree, and you are listening to God Applied. And I have to be honest, I have not yet perfected the process of talking to myself. And the more I get into this process, I realize that there's such a skill and an art to podcasting and to engaging people. And I'm still figuring that out. As I go throughout this process, I realize, I have a few episodes in the bank, and I know it's always easier for me to do if I'm talking with someone or I'm talking to someone or I can bounce off of someone. But being kind of in this season and this point, I realize I'm also on a growth point, and so there's a rush to want to put out content. But I realize that there's a certain quality level that I want to be able to give if I'm going to do this, and a certain level of vulnerability. And that's why I say I realize I haven't mastered the art of talking to myself. And I actually put an episode out and I ended up taking it down. And as I mentioned in my introduction, I have this thing about perfectionism and fighting that and trying to do better. I put an episode out because I'm like, you know what? Whether it's perfect or not, it's about growth. It's about, getting it done, and I will do better next time. I'm not going to stay in that same vein. And so I ended up putting it out, and I asked my family for feedback. I didn't publicize it because I really felt like it's not right. It's not really what I want, but I'm making efforts to grow. And so I asked my mom and my dad for feedback. And my mom was like, it was awesome. I love it. It was so good. I've heard you speak on some of these things before. You made some awesome points. And I'm like, really? It was good. She was like, it was good. My dad is there. My parents are just proud of everything that I do. I mean, if I say I want to do it, if I say, this is what I'm doing, they're going to blast it to the world and they're going to back it 100%. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks. And I asked my younger sister, I'm like, hey, this is what I kind of feel about what I put out. And I either confirm for me that this is right, am I off, or what do you think? And she never really gets back to me. And one thing that I know about my little sister is she's the kind of person that she's like, hey, if I've kind of told you something once and said, this is the vein that I think you should be in, she's not going to repeat herself, right? She's not going to give me all that detailed stuff. She's like, hey, I said it, and either you get it or you don't. The only person that really gets a pass here is my oldest sister, because when I published the episode and then I took it down, so she may not have had time to listen to it. So she's the only person that gets a pass here. But I called my best friend and I said the same thing. And I said, hey, I need you to listen to this because I'm not feeling great about it. And I'm like, I seriously want your feedback, like harsh, true, real, whatever it is. Tell me the truth. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna give it to you. And I'm like, yeah, I want it. I need it because I really want to grow. She's like, all right. So I called her back a little later and I'm like, hey, have you had a chance to listen to it? She's like, yeah, I'm about halfway through. My phone was dying. I didn't get a chance to listen to the whole thing. And I'm like, well, I have to be honest. I don't love it. And she's like, well, I have to be honest. I don't love it either. And I was like, yes. Finally, someone is telling me the truth. And at the end of the day, it's a truth, I guess, that I already knew, but I needed the feedback. And I have to be honest, there was great content within that podcast. And so as I begin to think about it, I'm like, so what made it not so great? I'm trying to figure this out and nobody is telling me what it is. They're just like, we're proud of you. It's great. Or, I told you should maybe do it like this. This is the setup, but I'm trying to make things my own, and there's no detailed feedback. I'm like, so what is it? And so we started breaking down some things and she's like, it was good. She's like, I think for a lot of the other settings that you're in when you're speaking or you're preaching or you're at a university or you're talking to athletes, like it was good for that. She said, but for this platform, it wasn't so good. And she's like, I feel like I'm being really harsh. And I'm like, no, this is what I need. I need to know how I can change if I want to succeed in this realm and in this way. And I want to be able to adapt, And so she started throwing out some ideas and some suggestions. And I'm like, that's actually really good. And it's so obvious. But quite honestly, I was leaning on tools that were familiar for me and to me and doing what I normally do when I'm talking on different platforms. And she's like, are you sure I'm like, harsh or not, I need to hear it. I want to hear it. She's like, okay. And so she started breaking down a lot of different things. And I was just like, wow, I'm so grateful because that's what I was looking for. I'm at a place in my life where I am really trying to grow. And I don't know if it's just me, but when I ask someone for feedback and to criticize or to critique constructively, I'm not just asking people to hurt my feelings, but to constructively criticize what I'm doing, I really want them to do that. And I don't know if we're living in a world and or a society or sometimes just the people that, we have around us that we can't give the full truth or we don't take the time to truly evaluate what's going on or what's been asked of us to evaluate. And I looked at and then I'm like, you know what? I'm at a place where because I so want to grow, I'm searching for that. And I'm really hoping that that's what this platform is. Like I told you in the beginning, it's not going to be perfect and I'm not going to have the answers. But as I begin to dig for some of the answers and I begin to ask God, okay, God, what is it that I need to do? How do I need to change this up? And one of the things he kind of told me was, Desiree, you're confusing your platforms. And I'm like, confusing my platforms? He said, Desiree, you're supposed to write a book. You're supposed to be speaking at universities. You're supposed to be talking to athletes. You're not supposed to be doing all of that. This is something that you are supposed to do as well. But this platform is not those platforms. And because you haven't completed everything that you're supposed to complete on those platforms, you're trying to force it and complete it here. And that's what's not going to work. And that's where that dissonance and that disconnect is, and I was like, man, that is exactly it. A lot of the things that I would want to write about in detail, I can't do here for fear of boring you or, for not getting, the fullness of what I needed to do. In that podcast that I published, I talked about gifts and being gifted. And I pulled so much out. I mean, I pulled the psychology out. I pulled examples from the Word of God out. I pulled personal experience out, so much. And those are things that honestly I'm supposed to be writing about. And my best friend said, she said, because in the podcast, I referred to a conversation that I had with her. She said, when we had that conversation, that was over a 2-hour conversation. She said, your podcast was, it was like 38 minutes. She said, so you tried to cram so much information. She said, you could have did a part 1, you could have did a part 2. She said, but you crammed so much information in, trying to get so much knowledge in. And she said, it wasn't good. She said, you didn't do the topic justice for what you were talking about. She said, when you talk about gifting, she's like, that's something that everybody is looking for. And everybody, she said, so I understand why you wanted to do the topic, but you didn't do it justice. And I'm like, yeah, you are so right. And there was so much in me, but it was just the pressure of feeling like, okay, what's in me, I have to get it out, but I have to get it out in the right way and in the right season and in the right platform. And just because I have a voice to speak doesn't mean that I should be speaking on it on this platform and in this way. And it might need to come in another form. And so I was so grateful for that feedback. And then I guess I asked myself the question is, I knew that there was something a little off. That it wasn't everything that I wanted it to be. And so I'm like, if I knew that, why did I need kind of that confirmation? I wanted that confirmation. And the Word of God talks about how, you should seek confirmation. But I also began to reflect inwardly. And I was like, well, was that an insecurity there where I'm like, okay, I need someone to tell me this, or I'm not sure, or why did I need that validation? Why couldn't I just make the changes? And in some areas, I'm realizing, I was a little blind, and I'm like, I'm just doing what I know to do. I'm doing what's familiar. And I'm like, was that wrong? And honestly, I can't say that it was wrong to seek out confirmation for what I was feeling. I can't say that it was wrong to seek out that feedback, because I think there's a difference between, having confirmation just to validate my feelings and trying to grow. Even though in this instance, I think it was a good thing to ask questions and seek confirmation for what I was feeling. But I realized that there's also a danger in that if I can't move or if I can't do things, if I always need that confirmation. And so for me, this is my growth process. I'm debating, when will I just be able to, my eyes be open and I'll be able to see what needs to be changed and make that change for myself. But realizing that it's also necessary to have people in your life that can say, yeah, no, that's not good. Love me enough to do it. And this is my question to you guys. What does that look like for you? How do you do that? How do you build that? And how are you building that? And is that easy? I have to be honest, especially as someone who's single. I feel like people who are in committed relationships or who are married, that person should be there to critique you. There should have a conviction to say, hey, babe, that's not right. We're growing together. We need to do this. What you're doing is affecting me as well. It's affecting our household. So there's a level of accountability that's there. But when you're single, that's something that you have to build for yourself and you have to figure out for yourself. And I'm navigating through that to continue to grow in my purpose and realizing how important it is to pull people into this process and know that the feedback that I get from everybody, like, they're in categories. I know that when it comes to certain things, or matters about my heart or things like that, like, I'm going to my mom, right? My mom has just that magic that she just makes everything better, right? She makes me feel better. But when it comes to that critical criticism, my mom is not the person to go to, at least for me. She does it well with other people. But when it comes to me, she loves me. And so, I can do no wrong in a lot of instances. Not that she doesn't give me correction, because she does. But when it comes to really critiquing some of the things that I'm doing, or when I say, hey, can I do this better? She's always going to say, honey, it was good. It was great. And there's truth in that, but that's not always what I need to grow. And so she gives me that love portion of growth that I need. And, and there are so many other elements that everybody in my family I could go through and I could pick out and I could say, what my sisters bring and what they do, and then my friends as well. And so I think a part of this growth process is realizing what type of feedback that each member in my circle gives me, right? Because there are some things I can go to my dad about that I've learned I can't go to my mom about. Like, if I want this type of answer, or I'm looking for this type of feedback, not this type of answer, but this type of feedback, I know that I need to go to my dad. Or if I'm looking for action, or I'm looking for, I need help getting certain things done, like, my dad is that person who's going to help me with those outcomes, and so it's just a lesson that I'm learning, and I'm so curious as to what does that look like for other people. Because if I'm going through this, I have to assume that I'm not the only person going through this. I could be, and in that case, I'll still take it because I'm still growing, And at the end of the day, I think my heart truly is just to seek the face of God, and I honestly feel like I'm at a season where I'm hidden. I think I'm transitioning out of this season. And I feel like in so many ways, I've heard so many people say, oh, you're going to do some great things. God has called you to do some great things. And I believe I'm called to do great things. I know I'm called to do some great things. But there's also a season in my life right now that I feel like I'm hidden, in the sense that God is like, not yet. The fullness is coming. The greatness is coming. The platforms are coming. All of that it's on its way. But right now, be still. And honestly, I feel like, given everything that we have going on in the world right now, that's what God is telling, I can't say everyone, but a whole lot of people, but to dig deeper in this season. And what happens for me personally, okay, is I say it like this: God will literally take me from my basement to the Olympic Games, and that's how it works. And for those of you who know me and know what's going on, I was supposed to be going to the 2020 Olympic Games, which have been moved to 2021. And so the intent is still to go. And I'm supposed to be working on a lot of things and doing a lot of things. But right now I'm in my basement and I'm talking to you right now. And I'm trying to figure out how to do what I do better and how to communicate better and on different platforms and in different ways. And guess what? Right now, I don't feel like I have anyone who can directly speak into my life about those things. And I have to be honest, I'm learning that that's an intentional thing because it's making me lean into God. And while I get frustrated because I'm like, man, God, I can see that I need to grow in this area. Like, can't you just send me someone that's going to help me grow or who can just give me like a ABCD, this is what I'm supposed to do type thing. Like, I can follow directions. I'm open to criticism. I'm ready to grow. And I realize that in a lot of instances, that's the easy way out. I want Google for my life to be able to say, hey, show me how to do this. And yes, I'm doing my research and I'm listening to other people and I'm trying to figure other things out. But there's also something about a spoken word when someone can speak to you. And it's the difference between examples and in-samples, right? So this is something that our bishop taught on. And the difference between having an example of your life. An example is if I have a puzzle, right? So if I have a puzzle and on the front of the box is the picture of what it's supposed to look like, right? That is my example. But my in sample is when I go to someone who's done a puzzle before, right? And they say, well, when you do the puzzle, it's easier if you can take the pieces of the edges of the piece of the puzzle and you put those together first. And as you put those together, then you'll see everything else fall in place. And make sure that you look for colors, right? If these colors line up, separate your pieces first because it makes your workspace a lot easier. That's an in sample of somebody who's walking through it with you, or you have the ability to watch and see how it's done. And you gain knowledge and understanding, and you even get feedback from that in sample. And I'm like, God, that's what I need in my life. Like, there are so many examples out there. There's so much content out there that is exemplary, but what I need for my life is someone that can be that in sample. And, that's what's really causing me to lean even more into God, because God is like, you know what? I want to be that one to show you. And you want to lean to man. You're looking for a person or for someone to fill that void. And he's like, it's me. And you're going to kind of be hidden until you figure out that it's me. And when you go from your basement to the Olympics, if you want to be ready, lean in now. And I'm trying. I'm really trying. Balancing life and everything that I'm feeling and everything that's going on in the world and digging deeper. And I realize how distracted I get. And when it comes time to spending time with God, I want to grow, but it makes me even realize, even in the time that I spend with God, how much I'm just like, God, I just want you to be Google. Like, just give me the answer and then I'm ready to run with it. And I'm ready to do something. And you don't build relationship that way. And I want to give an example that I actually gave in the podcast that I deleted. God told me this several years ago when I was speaking to a group of ladies. And in the middle of speaking, God brought me back to a scripture that I had read earlier. And it was a scripture about how the cherubs in heaven, they guard the glory of God, right? So when we feel the glory or we feel the presence of God, God is basically, the cherubs in heaven have basically opened the gates and allowed his glory to seep through. And God was saying, Desiree, when they open the gates, you only feel the remnant of my presence and of my glory. He said, but I want you to think about the tabernacle, right? So when you have the tabernacle, you have the outer courts. Then you have the inner courts, and you have the holy place and the holy of holies. He said, but in that outer courts, you have the brazen altar, which is where people would come and they would literally wash themselves, right? They would clean themselves before they could enter into the presence of God. So anything that you're carrying, anything that's weighing you down, any sins that you have that are keeping you from being where you need to be in God or keeping you from growing, this is the place where you would begin to wash yourself and you would begin to cleanse yourself. And he said, Desiree, do you realize that there are so many people who get stuck at the brazen altar? He said they get stuck there and they clean themselves, they wash themselves, they get what they need to feel better and feel refreshed. He said then they turn around and they walk out. He said, and they never come to see me. They've never directly talked to me. They only enjoyed the remnant of my presence and the remnant of feeling better and the remnant of my glory because my glory was in the room. And that was enough for them. But they didn't seek me beyond that feeling of being refreshed, that feeling of now feeling, oh, maybe I got that I feel better. I got what I needed. I got what I thought I needed. They never seek me beyond that. And like I said, I'm in a season of growth and I want to seek God beyond just feeling refreshed and just feeling like, oh, I got my answer for the time being and not having the depth that I need to be able to stick around or the depth that I need when I'm when I can maintain being at that level. And I think that that's my problem right now. Honestly, like I said, I go from my basement to the Olympics. I go from my basement to speaking in front of, a number of people, but I'm trying to get to a place where I can stay at I can live at that level. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. But I just wanted to say, I know this has been a brief episode, but I just wanted to be honest with you guys. I'm growing and I'm trying to figure it out. And I want you to grow with me. I want to hear, how do you grow? What are some of the things that you use in the tools? And I could offer a lot of suggestions and I can get into technical things, but I think when I do that, I lose what I'm supposed to have on this platform. And so I want to provide opportunity for you to talk back and for us to have a discussion. And I'm gonna figure out some ways where we can do that better on social media and with social media. But I think it's important. And I would love to hear from you. How can we grow and build that circle where we can get that critical feedback that we need, but also realizing that, the preparation of the heart belongs to man, but the answer of the tongue is the Lord's. That at the end of the day, we can prepare our hearts and we can get all the feedback that we need, that we still have to make sure that we press past, those surface answers and those things that make us feel good. And we still have to hear from God. And that requires being actually in his presence, not just feeling him in the atmosphere. And the balance that takes, people and things and samples and examples and in samples are resources. And those are resources in my life that I'm building, but I realize that they are just that. And they are so necessary. They're tools. They're things that God uses for a time and for a season and intentionally. But at the end of the day, even all of the feedback that I got about how my episode was not that great, that's good. But that did nothing but point me back to God and say, okay, God, there were some great suggestions and things that I'm going to do, but you got to help me figure this out. But I wanted to say thank you for taking the time to listen today. And I hope you got some value out of that. And I hope you decide to come back and listen again. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next time.